22 past the hour. As I mentioned earlier, the U.S. deported 8 men to South Sudan on Friday after the Supreme Court ruled in favor of the Trump administration's effort to deport migrants to third countries. The men from 6 different nations were held for weeks at an American military base before a federal judge denied a request from their lawyers to stop their relocation over fears of torture. U.S. administration officials said all 8 men had been convicted of serious crimes in the U.S. prior to their deportation. That comes, as Axios notes this morning, quote, the MAGA movement is reveling in the creativity, severity, and accelerating force of President Trump's historic immigration crackdown, and that once fringe tactics, an alligator-moated detention camp, deportations to war zones, denaturalization of immigrant citizens are now being proudly embraced at the highest levels of the U.S. government. The report continues, and it's an extraordinary shift from Trump's first term when nationwide backlash and the appearance of cruelty forced the administration to abandon its family separation policy for unauthorized immigrants. And now the newly signed spending law will provide the administration an influx of billions of dollars in new funding for immigration enforcement. Meanwhile, Joe Rogan is once again speaking out about President Donald Trump's immigration policies. During an episode of his podcast last week, Rogan criticized the president's immigration enforcement tactics that have seen nonviolent immigrants swept up in ICE raids.
We were told there would be there's 2 things that are insane. One is the targeting of migrant workers, not cartel members, not gang members, not drug dealers, just construction workers showing up in construction sites and raiding them, gardeners.
Yeah.
Like, really?
Rogan first criticized Trump's immigration policies earlier this year after a Venezuelan asylum seeker was deported to El Salvador despite having no gang affiliations. The co-host of MSNBC's The Weekend Prime Time, Elise Jordan, is back with us. Also joining us, opinion writer at the New York Times, Mara Gay. And Mara, I'm first of all wondering, I'm trying to think of the limits that might be pushed with this new funding coming in from the bill.
Limits. I think, unfortunately, what we're seeing is that these ICE raids have now it's going to just be turbocharged and without any kind of accountability. Congress has not shown an appetite under Republican control for any kind of oversight. And we're talking about spending dollars for ICE and ICE raids and DHS that rival some countries, the entire budget of other countries. So there's a lot of concerns about just wantonness, I would say. We already don't actually have much insight at all into what's happening on America's streets, where these raids are happening, the way they're being conducted. And I think that Americans should be asking their Congress people to take a far more active role in oversight. I think there's just an underlying tragedy here. We were told for years, I'm not even 40 years old. I remember being told there's no money in America for healthcare, for public education, for new parks, all kinds of initiatives that we were told there's no money for this. But suddenly there's money to deport farm workers. There's money to sweep up people who worked with our troops in Afghanistan. There's funding to separate families, people who have really not committed crimes, but have come here to work, to be a part of this country. And I just think that the cruelty underlying this really shows that this isn't about immigration policy for this White House. This is about a policy of othering people who are not seen as American enough. And I think that is chilling. And you see that through line with this Alcatraz. It's so disturbing. It's honestly hard to get my.
Mara, I do think you hit the
around
nail on
it.
the head, though, talking about the cruelty.
Yeah.
It sounds like the migrants who are being deported to South Sudan have committed some pretty unsavory crimes. That said, how is it within humanitarian law to send people to a war zone, to an active war zone? Mika, I just think it sounds insane, and I just can't believe we're doing this as a country.
Yep.
This segment highlights the escalating brutality of the Trump administration's immigration and government, not as isolated killers, but as a deliberate policy backed by funding cuts and silence from Congress. 8 men from 6 countries were deported to South Sudan and national breaks by violence after being held at a U.S. military base for weeks. Despite legal concern over potential torture at the deportation process. While these individuals had prior convictions, the broader picture reveals something far more disturbing. Cruelty has become their point. Trump's allies are not longer hiding it. Once fringe ideas deporting people to war zones, revoking citizenship, were positioning AC as a paramilitary force now central to the agenda. Axios captured it best. The MAGA government is reveling in the severity of it all. This isn't policy, it's performance for a base hungry for retribution, not just days. The criticism by Joe Biden underscores how out of touch this administration is. It's not cartel members being ordered up, it's gardeners and construction workers. Migrants who come to work and build lives. This is not about safety, it's about objects and control. Commentators rarely point out the hypocrisy. For years, Americans were told there wasn't enough money for healthcare, education, or infrastructure. But now, billions are suddenly available for AC rates and deportations. As McGee said, we are funding terror, not solution. Fourth, Congress shows little appetite for oversight, and then journalists or podcasters raise concern. They are dismissed or patriotic. This is about just immigration. It is about defining who gets to belong in America. It's a dark turn toward authoritarianism wrapped in a flag. And if this continues unchecked, the question isn't whether Trump policy is illegal, it's whether they are moral. And right now, we answer and the resolution now.